Today I am going to talk about one of the most popular plants in my garden, which is my old olive tree. Now this olive tree is over 200 years old. Originally it would have come from an olive grove that was redundant in Spain, where they would dig up the trees, cut all of the roots off virtually, all of the large branches, so you just had a trunk with a few roots. They bring them over to this country, they sulk for a couple of years, and then they suddenly sprout from the top and they pop them into pots. Now this one came from the olive grove in Oundle. I'll link them in the description box. And it came in a plastic pot. I'll see if I can find a photograph to show you. Now, old olive trees are much hardier than you think. So this tree is 10 years old. Well, I've had it for 10 years, and it's been through some very cold winters, down to -10. They say that they're okay. The only thing I've ever done is wrap the pot in bubble wrap if I know there's going to be a sustained cold period. It's also very important to put them in the right kind of pot. So I've got mine in a wooden barrel. I think it's a whiskey barrel. I can't remember where it came from. I got it online, and the bottom of the pot has actually been removed so that the roots can go down into the soil. Now, it's very important for olives not to be waterlogged. So I would recommend using terracotta pots or wood if you can, because they're breathable. And if it's in a pot without the bottom cut off, I would raise it off the ground so that the water can drain away, so that the roots are not sitting in water. You can put them in the ground, but you need to make sure that it's a raised location so that it's not somewhere in your garden that gets very damp and boggy. Because if I put this in the ground here, this is the lowest part of my garden, it would not like it, because it would be sat with wet roots all the time, especially with the wet winters that we have in this country. So yeah, they are quite hardy. I'm actually going to prune mine today, because you should prune your olives in late spring, which we're in now, April, because if you prune them and then they grow, it'll make them grow new fresh growth, and then you get a frost, it will damage that new growth. So you need to let the new growth harden off through the summer so that it can last through the winter when it's cold without any damage. So here's a closer look at the trunk of the tree. This is why we buy them old like this, because you get this beautiful gnarled trunk effect, which is just a really lovely feature. I think it just gives us a sense of the Mediterranean as well, because obviously we don't get olive trees growing naturally in the UK. Right, so with pruning, you do not have to prune your olive tree. You can just leave it. If you prefer that lovely extended wafty look to the tree, don't prune it. I like to keep mine nice and compact into the shape that it is now. So if I just left it, it would just get larger and larger and larger, and I want to keep it into this area here. The only thing I will say about not pruning them is you will end up, the new growth always comes on the ends of the branches, so you need to prune some of the branches back to keep the growth in the center of the tree. Otherwise you'll end up with only leaves on the very ends of the branches. So I shall take away about a third, I would say, of the branches on the top of here. There are lights. I always have lights on. They're mains lights and they come on a timer. So I will need to remove those lights, and then I'll be able to prune. Okay, I have a pair of secateurs, nice sharp ones. I'll just go inside the tree here and just show you what I mean by the growth growing just on the ends. So can you see that each branch is really nice and long, and the leaves are on the ends. So from this point of view, it looks green, but if it was left too long, you end up with just brown in the center and the leaves on the end. So what I would do in that case is I would cut some of the branches right back to the main stem so that you get some green shoots where you've cut, so that it
makes the tree more dense, if you like. So yeah, the first thing to do is to cut off any suckers which are growing at the bottom. So we've got some tiny ones. Some years they're bigger than others. So these little ones growing at the base we don't want. So we'll cut all those off. And then I will cut these back by about a third, and I will keep all the clippings because I have plans for them. So if we come round to this side of the olive, you can see very clearly where the large branches were cut off when it was taken from Spain there, and then you can see where all the new growth has sprouted from. If you wanted to, you can even like make these into shapes, so you could cut all of these branches back to the main stem and they would sprout straight from there, and you'd end up with like little balls on the end of each branch. But I just prefer this kind of look. Now the olive doesn't grow very much towards me, it grows towards the house because that's where the sun is it's growing towards the sun basically. Now, as well as this very old olive tree, as you can see by the door, by the kitchen door here, I have two younger ones. Now these, there's Libby at the door, bless her. These also need to be pruned. Now these can and do produce olives. There's still some on from last year, if you can see there. I haven't actually done anything with them. I kept threatening to, but I never got around to it. So these, to produce olives, the olive trees, productive ones, will produce flowers and then olives on a year-old growth. So they do need pruning because they constantly need to be creating new shoots. And also these are lollipop varieties, so they need to be kept in a nice neat shape. Although, as I said before, if you want to let them grow free, you can do, if you prefer that look. So yeah, I will be pruning these into lollipop shape, and then I'll be feeding them.
Okay, so the trimming is done. I'm going to go off and find a use for all of this. You can see how much I've taken off, although it might not look like I've taken a lot off. I have. So every cut that I've made will stimulate new growth, so it will bush out. So some of the cuts I've made from in the middle here, some right back to the trunk, and then some just on the ends to shape it so it will fill out. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to feed both this one and the ones by the kitchen door with some tomato feed to give them a bit of a boost, and then I will sprinkle some multi-purpose feed granules on the top of the gravel here so that they get fed every time it's watered. It's really important to water olives. They need a lot of water, so through the summer this one will get a couple of cans a day, and some people set up irrigation so that they're getting water dripped all the time, and they even need watering through the winter. So I hope you found that helpful.